The massive space station called Nexus Prime hung in the void like a silver crown, its towers stretching for miles in every direction. Inside the Great Council Chamber, hundreds of alien beings from across the galaxy had gathered to witness something they considered amusing. Humanity had come to ask for membership in the Galactic Alliance, and most of the assembled creatures could barely contain their laughter. Captain Jake Morrison stood perfectly still beside Ambassador Lisa Crawford as countless eyes, sensors, and other alien organs studied them. He could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down like a heavy blanket. These beings had ruled the stars for thousands of years, while humans had only recently learned to leave their own solar system. The first to speak was Zekthor, a creature that looked like a giant insect walking on two legs. His voice buzzed and clicked as he addressed the chamber. "Look at these soft creatures. They have no natural armor, no claws, no poison glands. How did such weak beings even survive on their own planet?" The sound that followed was alien laughter, harsh and mocking. A being made of living crystal chimed in with a voice like breaking glass. "We have examined their ships, metal plates held together with crude welding. They still use chemical rockets to push themselves through space. Our youngest children build better toys." More laughter filled the chamber. Admiral Rick Turner kept his face blank even though anger burned in his chest. He had commanded Earth's greatest warships, but compared to the vessels he had seen in this system, they looked like toys made from scrap metal. The alien ships moved without engines, fired weapons that turned matter into energy, and could cross the galaxy in days instead of years. "Perhaps we could use them as servants," suggested another alien, this one covered in thick fur with 6 arms. "They seem good at following orders. We could teach them to clean our ships or carry supplies." The chamber erupted in what passed for amusement among dozens of different species. Some made whistling sounds, others clicked or hummed, and a few just flashed different colors. All of it felt like mockery to the human delegation. Ambassador Crawford stepped forward. Her voice remained calm and professional even though Jake could see her hands shaking slightly. "Honored members of the Galactic Alliance, humanity requests the opportunity to prove our worth as potential allies. We believe we can contribute to the greater good of all civilized species." Zekthor's compound eyes glittered with cruel humor. "Contribute? What could a species that only learned to split atoms a few centuries ago possibly offer us? We have been sailing between stars since before your species discovered fire." A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. This alien looked like a walking tree made of metal, with roots instead of feet and branches for arms. "Their entire military could not defeat one of our patrol ships. We have seen the scans. Their most powerful weapons would barely scratch our hull plating." Jake felt his jaw clench but forced himself to remain silent. Everything the alien said was true. Earth's most advanced missiles used nuclear warheads that these beings probably considered firecrackers. Their energy shields could stop anything humanity could throw at them, while their weapons could turn a human battleship into vapor in seconds. "Very well," Zekthor announced after the laughter died down. "We are not completely without mercy. Humanity will have 7 standard days to demonstrate some useful skill or technology. If you succeed in impressing us, we might consider allowing your species to serve the Alliance in some minor capacity." The insect being's mandibles clicked in what Jake recognized as barely contained amusement. "If you fail this simple test, humanity will be forbidden from expanding beyond your tiny solar system. You will remain trapped around your single star until your sun dies. Consider this a kindness, as most species that annoy us are simply eliminated." Crawford bowed slightly. "We accept these terms and thank the Alliance for this opportunity." As the session ended and the various aliens began to file out, Jake heard fragments of conversation in dozens of languages. Most of it seemed to be jokes about humans and bets on how quickly they would fail the coming test. One group of flying creatures that looked like metal birds were making sounds that their translators rendered as, "How long before they beg for mercy?" Admiral Turner moved closer to Crawford and Jake as they walked toward their shuttle. "We need to contact Earth immediately. Command has to know about this ultimatum." His voice was tight with controlled anger. Crawford nodded. 7 days to prove humanity deserves to exist among the stars. What are we supposed to show them? Our best scientists are like children compared to their worst students. Jake looked back at the station one last time as their shuttle pulled away. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see some of the alien ships docked at the station's ports. Each one was larger than Earth's greatest cities, and their hulls seemed to be made of materials that shifted and flowed like living metal. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "maybe we're looking at this wrong. They expect us to try matching their technology, but that's impossible. We need to find something they don't have." Turner shook his head grimly. "Like what? They've had millions of years to develop everything we could possibly think of. They travel faster than light, control gravity, manipulate matter at the atomic level, and some of them seem to read minds. What could humanity possibly have that they would want?" As their shuttle jumped to hyperspace and began the journey back to Earth, none of them noticed the small probe that had attached itself to their hull. Deep in space, something ancient was listening to their conversations and learning about what had happened in the council chamber. Far beyond the edge of known space, in a region where stars were sparse and space was cold and dark, systems that had been sleeping for centuries began to wake up. Computers older than most civilizations started processing new information. The Galactic Alliance had made a mistake, though they would not understand that mistake for several days yet. The probe sent its data across impossible distances using technology that the Alliance had forgotten existed. In response, engines that had not fired for 200 years began to warm up. A ship that the galaxy had never seen began to move through the darkness between stars, heading toward the place where humanity would make its stand. The aliens had laughed at humanity's weakness, but laughter could be a dangerous thing when the wrong ears were listening. 7 days had passed like a bad dream, and now humanity's finest fleet hung in space around a dead star system, chosen by the Galactic Alliance for their test. Admiral Kate Parker stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, humanity's newest and most powerful battleship, watching the tactical display with growing dread. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Alliance Observation Fleet," reported Communications Officer Tony Chen from his station near the back of the bridge. Parker nodded without taking her eyes off the main screen. Around the Liberty, 11. Other human warships held formation in perfect military precision. 12 destroyers built for speed and torpedo attacks, 6 heavy cruisers with the most advanced railgun systems Earth could produce, and 3 battleships including her own flagship. It represented the absolute peak of human military technology, and she knew it would not be enough. "Put them through," she ordered. The face that appeared on the main viewer belonged to Zekthor, the same insect alien who had mocked humanity in the council chamber. His compound eyes glittered with anticipation as he spoke. "Human fleet, you will demonstrate your combat capabilities against a single Alliance vessel. Try not to disappoint us too badly." Parker felt her stomach drop as a ship materialized out of hyperspace about 50,000 kilometers away. The Vexthari heavy cruiser looked like something from a nightmare, its biometallic hull rippling and shifting as if it were alive. Weapon ports opened and closed like mouths breathing, and the entire vessel seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Commander Steve Rodriguez, her second in command, moved to stand beside her chair. "Ma'am, intelligence reports say that ship has regenerating armor and plasma weapons hot enough to melt through our best hull plating like butter." "I know," Parker replied quietly. Through the view screen, she could see the alien vessel's shields shimmering around it like heat waves. Those barriers alone were probably stronger than anything humanity could mount on their largest ships. The Doom's Edge, as the enemy ship was called, began to move toward them with fluid grace. There were no visible engines, no thrust plumes, just smooth acceleration that defied everything human engineers thought they knew about physics. "All ships, this is Admiral Parker," she announced over the fleet communications channel. "Attack pattern Alpha. Target all weapons on the enemy vessel and fire on my command." 21 human warships turned to face their single opponent. Missile tubes loaded with nuclear warheads, railgun batteries charged their capacitors, and laser arrays focused their beams for maximum penetration. Every weapon humanity had ever developed for space combat was about to be used at once. "Fire," Parker ordered. Space lit up with human fury, Hundreds of missiles streaked toward the doom's edge, their nuclear warheads primed to detonate on impact. Behind them came streams of railgun projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed, each one carrying enough kinetic energy to level a city block. Laser beams invisible to the naked eye except for their targeting markers reached out to touch the alien hull. For a moment, hope flickered in Parker's chest as explosions bloomed across the enemy's shields. The barrier flared bright white and seemed to waver under the assault. Maybe, just maybe, concentrated human firepower could overwhelm even alien defenses. Then the doom's edge returned fire. The destroyer UES Courage simply vanished. One moment it was there adding its weapons to the human barrage. The next there was only expanding gas and debris where 150 crew members had been fighting for humanity's survival. The alien weapon that destroyed it had been invisible, leaving no trace except the complete annihilation of everything it touched. "Evasive maneuvers," Parker shouted, but it was already too late. The cruiser UES Justice broke in half as a beam of pure energy cut through its center section. The two pieces of the ship tumbled away from each other, atmosphere and bodies streaming from the wounds. Parker watched in horror as tiny figures in spacesuits tried desperately to reach escape pods that would never come. One by one, humanity's pride was torn apart by weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. The destroyer, UES Defiance, lost its entire forward section to a projectile that appeared to be made of liquid fire. The cruiser UES Triumph simply stopped existing when something hit it that turned matter into energy at the molecular level. "Damage report," Parker called out as her own ship shook under enemy fire. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, reported the damage control officer. "Life support is failing in sections C and D. Main engines are operating at 30% capacity." Through the smoke filling her bridge, Parker could see the tactical display showing the disaster unfolding around them. 18 human ships had been reduced to wreckage in less than 20 minutes. Only the Liberty and 2 badly damaged destroyers remained operational, and they would not last much longer. "Admiral, the alien ship is hailing us," Tony Chen announced, his voice shaking. Parker straightened in her command chair even though she could feel the deck plates buckling under her feet. On screen, Zekthor appeared again, and this time his mandibles were clicking in obvious amusement. "Have you seen enough, human? Your species' greatest weapons cannot even penetrate our shields. Perhaps you would like to surrender now and save your remaining crew members?" Around the bridge, Parker could see her officers looking at her with desperate hope. They had families back on Earth, dreams and futures that would die with them if she continued this hopeless fight. But she also knew that surrender meant condemning all of humanity to permanent imprisonment in their own solar system. "All stop," she ordered quietly. The words felt like poison in her mouth, but she had no choice. "Transmit surrender signal." The laughter that followed echoed across every communication frequency, not just from Zekthor, but from the entire Alliance observation fleet. Dozens of different species were sharing in humanity's humiliation, their mockery transmitted to every corner of the galaxy. "Pathetic," came a new voice from one of the observer ships. "We wasted time even watching this display. Send them home to their little planet and forbid them from leaving again." Parker closed her eyes as the transmission ended. In 30 years of military service, she had never felt such complete and utter defeat. Humanity had thrown everything. They had at a single enemy ship and barely managed to make its shields flicker. But somewhere in the darkness beyond the battlefield, something was listening to the alien laughter. Ancient systems that had been dormant for centuries were analyzing the combat data, studying the weapons and tactics of the species that had dared to humiliate their chosen inheritors. The Galactic Alliance had won this battle, but they had also made the mistake of revealing their capabilities to an enemy they did not know existed. Deep in space where no sensors could detect it, a ship older than their civilizations began to move toward the combat zone. The real test was about to begin, though the aliens would not realize it until it was far too late to change the outcome. Their laughter would soon turn to screams of terror as they learned what happened when ancient powers were awakened by the mockery of their children. In the cold darkness at the edge of human space, where even Earth's most distant monitoring stations could not reach, something that had been sleeping for 2 centuries began to wake up. The UES Vengeance drifted silently through the void, its black hull absorbing light like a hungry shadow. Inside the ship's medical bay, Captain Dan Cooper opened his eyes for the first time in over 200 years. The cryogenic pod that had preserved him hissed as it opened, releasing vapor that had kept him alive through decades of dreamless sleep. His body, enhanced by procedures that few humans had ever undergone, immediately began adapting to consciousness. Around him, 35 other pods were opening as his carefully chosen crew awakened from their own suspended animation. These men and women had volunteered for humanity's most secret project, back when the rest of the galaxy still thought humans were confined to a single star system. "Status report," Cooper commanded as he stepped onto the bridge. His voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded warships when most civilizations thought Earth was just another lifeless rock orbiting an unremarkable star. Lieutenant Amy Foster, who had been his navigator since the ship's commissioning, checked the instruments at her station. "Captain, we're receiving distress signals from Admiral Parker's fleet. Long-range sensors show massive debris fields and energy signatures consistent with advanced alien weapons." Cooper's weathered face showed no emotion, but his dark eyes hardened with something that might have been anger. "So they finally revealed themselves to the galaxy. And the galaxy found us wanting." "Sir," interrupted Science Officer Ben Murphy, from his position near the main display, "I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. It looks like a significant alien fleet has assembled in the test system." Through the main view screen, space began to shimmer and twist as dozens of alien warships dropped out of hyperspace. Fexithari bioships that looked like living creatures, Shalmari vessels made of singing crystal, and warships from a dozen other species formed up in battle formation. Their weapons were already charging, energy patterns visible even at this distance. "Incoming transmission from the lead vessel," reported Communications Officer Linda Hayes. The image of Zekthor appeared on the main screen, his insect features twisted with cruel amusement. "So the humans have one more primitive vessel to offer for target practice? How wonderfully pathetic. We will destroy you quickly so you can join your friends in death." Cooper stepped forward into the light from the view screen. When he spoke, his voice was calm and measured, like a teacher correcting a student's mistake. "This is Captain Dan Cooper of the United Earth ship Vengeance. You are in violation of ancient treaties and laws that were old when your species first crawled out of whatever swamp spawned you. Withdraw immediately, or face the consequences." The laughter that followed came not just from Zekthor, but from the entire alien fleet. The sound echoed through space as beings from across the galaxy shared in what they saw as the final joke of humanity's pathetic resistance. Ancient treaties? Zekthor's mandibles clicked with mirth. Laws? You barely learned to leave your own planet a few centuries ago, human. Your species is an infant trying to threaten adults. Prepare to die with the rest of your kind. Cooper turned to face his crew, all of whom had served with him through missions that officially never happened. Battle stations. Amy, bring us to full combat status. Ben, activate all defensive systems. Linda, open a channel to Earth Command and transmit our activation codes. As the Vengeance powered up for combat, reality around the ship began to change in ways that hurt to look at directly. The hull, which had appeared to be simple human construction from a distance, began to reveal its true nature. Geometric patterns that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions appeared along its surface. Armor plating that absorbed light itself became visible as the ship's stealth systems disengaged. "Sir, the alien fleet is moving to attack formation," Amy reported, her hands dancing across controls that would have been incomprehensible to any other human crew. Cooper nodded. "Let them come. It's time these children learned why their ancestors built monuments to things they found in the dark between stars." The first alien ship to open fire was a Shalmari dreadnought, its crystalline structure focusing energy beams that could punch through the core of a planet. The coherent light that emerged from its weapons arrays was hot enough to turn matter into plasma, powerful enough to crack moons. The beams struck the Vengeance and simply vanished. They did not reflect off the hull or get absorbed by shields. They just stopped existing, as if they had never been fired at all. The energy that should have vaporized the human ship was somehow erased from reality. "Impossible," whispered a voice from one of the alien vessels. Cooper's expression remained calm as he gave his first order. "Forward weapons array, target the lead Vexithari vessel. Fire." What emerged from the Vengeance was not recognizable as any type of weapon known to galactic civilization. Space itself seemed to tear open, revealing something beyond normal dimensions. Energies that had existed since before the first stars formed reached out to touch the doom's edge. The massive alien warship did not explode or burn or break apart. It simply ceased to exist. Every atom that had composed the vessel and its crew was scattered across dimensions that had no names in any language. Where the ship had been, there was now only empty space and the memory of something that was no longer real. Across the alien fleet, panic began to set in like a disease. Sensors that could analyze matter at the quantum level were showing readings that made no sense. The energy signatures coming from the human ship matched records from archaeological sites that predated known civilization. "Those energy patterns," stammered a voice from one of the observer ships. "They matched the predecessor ruins, but the predecessors vanished millions of years ago." Cooper's voice carried across every communication frequency, and for the first time the aliens heard something in it that made their blood run cold. Not anger or hatred, but the disappointment of a parent dealing with misbehaving children. "The predecessors did not vanish," he said quietly. "They evolved beyond the need for physical form and seeded the galaxy with their chosen successors. They have been waiting for the day when those successors would prove themselves worthy of their true inheritance." On the Vengeance's bridge, Lieutenant Foster accessed records that had been sealed since the ship's construction over 2 centuries ago. "Captain, shall I transmit the historical files to Earth Command?" Cooper nodded, and across human space, the truth began to unfold. Humanity had not developed faster than light travel through normal technological advancement. They had been chosen by an ancient civilization that had ruled the galaxy when the current species were still single-celled organisms. The gifts had come with a price and a responsibility. Humanity had to prove themselves worthy not just of survival, but of inheriting power beyond imagination. The Vengeance and her crew were the first test subjects, volunteers who had undergone procedures that enhanced them far beyond normal human limits and gave them the ability to interface with technology, older than recorded history. "You see," Cooper continued as his ship moved through the alien formation like a shark through minnows, "humanity is not just another species begging for acceptance. We are the chosen inheritors of the galaxy's greatest civilization, and you have made the critical error of mocking your superiors." The second alien vessel to challenge the Vengeance was a massive Korlani battleship, its hull covered in overlapping armor plates that had turned aside the weapons of 100 conquered species. The ship's captain, a being with 4 arms and skin like living metal, activated every weapon system his vessel possessed. Gravity bombs that could crush planets into diamonds launched from the battleship's forward tubes. Particle beams that existed in 11 dimensions reached out to tear the human ship apart at the molecular level. Reality-warping missiles that could erase targets from history itself streaked toward their target. All of these weapons struck the Vengeance and accomplished nothing. The gravity bombs had their force redirected into empty space. The particle beams were absorbed into the ship's hull as if they were gentle sunlight. The reality-warping missiles simply forgot what they were, supposed to destroy, and drifted away harmlessly. Captain Cooper stood calmly on his bridge as instruments around him displayed impossible readings. "Starboard weapons array, eliminate that annoyance," he ordered. A section of the Vengeance's hull that had appeared solid opened like an eye. What emerged was not energy or matter, but something else entirely, a force that existed in the spaces between atoms and the gaps between thoughts. It touched the Korlani battleship, and the massive vessel began to come apart, not destroyed, but simply becoming less real with each passing second. The crew of the alien ship had time to scream before they stopped existing, their voices echoing across communication frequencies as they realized they were being erased from the universe itself. Within moments, where a ship carrying 10,000 warriors had been, there was only empty space and silence. Admiral Kate Parker, who had been rescued from her damaged vessel and brought aboard the Vengeance, stood on the bridge watching this impossible battle unfold. "Captain Cooper, how long have you and your crew been out here?" Cooper did not take his eyes off the tactical display as he answered. "Since 2157, Admiral. We volunteered when the first predecessor artifacts were discovered buried beneath Antarctica. Our mission was to remain hidden until humanity was ready to claim its inheritance, or until circumstances forced us to reveal ourselves. Around them, the battle continued as alien ships tried desperately to damage or destroy the human vessel. A Thexnari heavy cruiser launched weapons that could manipulate time itself, trying to age the vengeance into cosmic dust. The temporal distortion struck the ship's hull and was reflected back, aging the alien vessel 1,000,000 years in seconds, and turning it into a cloud of ancient metal. "This is impossible," came a panicked transmission from Zekthor's command ship. "No known technology can counter our most advanced weapons. What are you?" Cooper activated the ship's external communication system. His voice, when it reached every alien vessel in the fleet, carried with it harmonics that seemed to resonate in dimensions beyond normal space. "We are humanity," he said simply. "But not the humanity you thought you knew. 200 years ago, our archaeologists discovered ruins buried deep beneath Earth's surface, structures that predated human civilization by millions of years, left behind by a species that had ruled this galaxy when your ancestors were still swimming in primordial oceans." As he spoke, the Vengeance began to change. Its hull, which had appeared to be made of familiar human alloys, revealed its true composition. Materials that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously became visible. Geometric patterns that hurt alien minds to contemplate spread across its surface like living tattoos. "The predecessors," Cooper continued, "did not simply disappear, as your archaeological records suggest. They evolved beyond physical existence, transcending matter and energy to become something greater. But before they departed this realm, they seeded the galaxy with tests and gifts, waiting for a species worthy of their legacy. A Velthari attack wing, 15 of their most advanced fighters, attempted to overwhelm the Vengeance with coordinated strikes. Their weapons, designed to phase through normal matter and strike directly at atomic bonds, reached their target simultaneously. The human ship absorbed the attack like a sponge absorbing water, then it released that energy back at its attackers, but changed, transformed into something that unraveled the fundamental forces holding the fighters together. 15 alien pilots had time to realize what was happening to them before they became scattered particles drifting in space. Lieutenant Amy Foster looked up from her navigation console. "Captain, I'm receiving quantum-entangled transmissions from Earth. The predecessor sites are awakening. The installations under the Himalayas, beneath the Pacific Ocean, inside the moon's core, they're all coming online." Cooper nodded as if he had expected this news. "The time for hiding is over. Humanity's children are ready to see what their parents truly are." Across human space, ancient machines that had slept for millennia began to activate. On Earth, structures larger than continents rose from the ocean floors. The moon's surface cracked open to reveal cities of impossible beauty built from crystallized light. Mars, which humans had thought was a dead world, began to bloom as terraforming systems older than recorded history came back to life. But it was not just machines that were awakening. Humans who had undergone the same enhancement procedures as Cooper's crew began to emerge from hidden facilities. Men and women who had volunteered for missions that officially did not exist, who had been transformed into something more than baseline humanity, began to take their places as Earth's true guardians. The process began slowly, Cooper explained, as his ship continued to demonstrate the futility of alien resistance. First contact with predecessor technology required genetic and neurological modifications that took years to complete safely. We were the first volunteers, the ones willing to sacrifice our normal human lives to become bridges between your species and your inheritance. A massive Zenthari dreadnought, 5 kilometers long and armed with planet-killing weapons, made one final desperate attack. It launched everything it had, weapons that could shatter space itself and turn stellar matter into exotic particles. The Vengeance did not even bother to defend itself. The alien weapons struck and were simply absorbed, their energy added to the human ship's already impossible power reserves. In response, Cooper's vessel fired a single shot that did not destroy the dreadnought, but instead transformed it, changing its atomic structure until the alien ship became a perfect duplicate of human technology, its crew helplessly trapped inside a vessel they no longer understood how to operate. "This is your new reality," Cooper announced to the terrified alien fleet. "Humanity claims its birthright as the inheritors of predecessor civilization. Your species may continue to exist, but only under human guidance and protection. You have 1 hour to begin transmitting your complete technological databases and surrender command authority to human representatives." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of alien ships powering down their weapons in surrender. The age of galactic human dominance had begun not through conquest, but through the revelation that it had always been humanity's destiny to rule the stars. The transformation that followed would be remembered throughout galactic history as the day the universe changed forever. Within hours of Captain Cooper's ultimatum, alien fleets across known space began receiving the same impossible transmissions. Ships that had seemed like ancient human vessels emerged from the darkness between stars, each one crewed by humans who had been enhanced beyond normal limitations and armed with technology that made the Galactic Alliance's greatest achievements look like stone tools. Admiral Parker stood on the Vengeance's bridge, watching through the main view screen as alien commanders transmitted their surrender codes. "Captain, I have to ask, how many ships like this one does humanity actually have?" Cooper's enhanced eyes reflected light that seemed to come from within as he answered. 47 vessels currently active, with another 133 in various stages of construction. We have had 2 centuries to prepare for this day, Admiral. Every enhanced human who volunteered for the program knew they might never see normal human society again. The tactical display showed alien fleets throughout the galaxy powering down their weapons and transmitting their complete technological databases as ordered. Species that had conquered hundreds of worlds were surrendering to humans they had mocked as primitives just hours earlier. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Linda Hayes, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. President Martinez is requesting immediate conference with you and Admiral Parker." The image that appeared on the secondary screen showed not just Earth's president, but also General Hayes, Admiral Kim, and Dr. Sarah Lopez, who had been the lead scientist on the predecessor research project for the past 30 years. "Captain Cooper," President Martinez began, "the entire world is demanding answers. Our space monitoring stations are detecting massive energy signatures from installations we never knew existed. The moon is literally coming apart to reveal structures inside it." Dr. Lopez leaned forward, her eyes bright with excitement and fear. "Dan, the quantum entanglement communicators we gave you are receiving data streams from predecessor sites across the galaxy. It looks like every major world has hidden installations that are now activating." Cooper nodded calmly. "The predecessors were thorough, Sarah. They did not just seed one species with their technology. They prepared the entire galaxy for the day when their chosen inheritors would be ready to assume leadership." On the bridge around him, his crew worked at stations that seemed to reshape themselves to match their needs. Lieutenant Foster's navigation console displayed star charts that showed hyperspace routes no known species had ever mapped. Science Officer Murphy's instruments were analyzing phenomena that existed in dimensions beyond normal space. "Captain," Amy Foster reported, "I'm detecting massive spatial distortions throughout human space. It looks like the predecessor installations are creating permanent hyperspace corridors that will allow instant travel between any 2 points in human territory." The implications were staggering. Humanity would not just rule the galaxy through superior technology, but through complete control of faster-than-light travel itself. Any species that wanted to trade with distant worlds would need human permission to use the corridors. A new transmission came from the alien fleet. Zekthor's image appeared on screen, but the arrogant insect being who had mocked humanity was gone. In his place was a creature broken by the realization of how completely his species had misunderstood their situation. "Captain Cooper," Zekthor's voice was barely a whisper, "my government is prepared to discuss terms for the Vexthari Empire's complete surrender. We..." We did not understand what humanity truly was. Cooper's response was delivered with the patience of someone explaining simple concepts to a confused child. Your species will retain autonomy over your internal affairs, but all military operations, expansion activities, and contact with other civilizations will be subject to human oversight. You will contribute 20% of your industrial output to the greater galactic community under human administration. Similar conversations were taking place across the galaxy as enhanced human crews emerged from hiding to accept the surrender of civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia. The Shalmari Collective, the Korlani Federation, the Thexnari Republic, all were discovering that the primitive humans they had mocked were actually the inheritors of power beyond their comprehension. "Admiral Parker," Cooper said, turning to face her, "you and your surviving crew will be offered the enhancement procedures if you wish to join us. The process takes approximately 18 months and will extend your lifespans to roughly 500 years while giving you the ability to interface directly with predecessor technology." Parker looked around the impossible bridge of the Vengeance, at instruments that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch, at crew members who moved with inhuman grace and spoke with voices that carried harmonics from other dimensions. "What about the rest of humanity?" she asked. "The billions of people on Earth and the colonies who never knew any of this existed." "They will be protected and guided as they always have been," Cooper replied. "But they will also be given the choice to join us if they prove worthy. The enhancement procedures cannot be forced on anyone, and not everyone is genetically compatible with predecessor technology." Dr. Lopez's voice came from the communication screen. "Captain, we're receiving reports from every major Earth city. People are seeing the installations rising from the oceans, the structures emerging from underground. How do we explain this to the world?" Cooper was quiet for a moment, considering the question. Around him, space continued to change as predecessor systems activated throughout the galaxy. Dead worlds were beginning to bloom with life as ancient terraforming systems came online. Civilizations that had thought themselves advanced were discovering that their greatest achievements had been children's toys compared to the technology now at humanity's disposal. "Tell them the truth, Sarah," he said finally. "Humanity has always been more than we appeared to be. We were chosen long before we knew we were special, guided by beings who transcended physical existence millions of years ago. Today, their children have finally proven themselves worthy of their inheritance." The transformation continued for weeks as humanity revealed the full extent of their hidden nature. Ships that could reshape matter at the molecular level. Weapons that could edit objects out of existence. Defensive systems that made attacks simply forget what they were supposed to target. All of it had been waiting, hidden in the darkness between stars, for the day when the galaxy's true rulers would be ready to claim their throne. Ambassador Lisa Crawford, now promoted to Galactic Coordinator, addressed the universe from her new office on Nexus Prime. The space station had been transformed overnight as predecessor systems revealed themselves, turning the crude alien construction into something that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that had no names. "Let this be understood throughout the stars," she declared to representatives of every known civilization. "Humanity extends its protection to all species willing to accept guidance toward a better future. We seek not conquest but cooperation, not subjugation but partnership in building a galaxy worthy of our predecessor heritage." Behind her, Captain Cooper and his crew prepared for their next mission. Other ancient ships were awakening throughout human space, carrying crews who had waited centuries for their time to rejoin the expanding human empire. The Vengeance had been just the beginning. The galaxy's mockery had ended forever, replaced by the understanding that humanity had never been the primitive species they appeared to be. They had always been the chosen inheritors of the stars, simply waiting for the right moment to claim what had always been theirs by right of inheritance and destiny.